The strangest thing about living this long is not the wrinkles or the pills people assume you must take, or even the way strangers look at you like you're some kind of museum piece. No, the strangest thing is waking up one morning and realizing you have become the last witness to a world that has already disappeared. The voices are gone, the footsteps are gone, the laughter is gone, and somehow you are still here, sitting in the same chair, hearing the same floorboards creak under your feet, while everyone who once filled your life has vanished into memory. That's the part nobody prepares you for. I'm Walter. I'm 105 years old, and before I tell you anything else, let me tell you this. Almost everyone I loved asked me the same question before they went. Friends asked it, neighbors asked it, my brothers asked it. Even the people I spent years trying not to become asked it, with that tired look in their eyes. Walter, what's your secret? They always said it like I had been hiding some rare answer in my coat pocket all these years. And every time I gave them the same reply. I said, clean food. I said it so many times that after a while, even I began to hear it like a recorded line. Clean food. That was the answer I handed people because it sounded sensible, respectable, safe. But the older I got, the less I believed that was the real answer. Because I noticed something. The people who followed every rule did not stay any longer than the people who didn't. The ones who measured portions, avoided butter, counted calories, walked at dawn, drank green things out of glasses, and talked proudly about discipline. Many of them left just as early as the men who ate dessert, grumbled through life, and never once read a label. I watched careful people die. I watched careless people die. I watched strong people disappear. I watched gentle people disappear. And little by little, I started understanding that whatever keeps a person here, it cannot be explained by breakfast alone. If you've ever wondered about this yourself, about what really makes a life long or what makes it worth staying for, then stay with me. And while you're here, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and in the comments, tell me how old the oldest person in your family lived to be. I always find those stories worth reading, because age is one thing, but the life inside those years is something else entirely. I drove a taxi for 41 years, long enough to learn the sound of people's lies before they even finished speaking, long enough to tell who was lonely just by the way they shut the car door, long enough to know that most people don't really want truth when they ask for advice. They want reassurance. I still wake up at 6 every morning, not because I have somewhere urgent to be, but because the body remembers a lifetime of work, even when the work is gone. I make my own coffee. I sit in the same chair I've been sitting in for 47 years. Across from me is another chair. That one has been empty for 11 years now. I never moved it after Margaret passed. Some people told me I should, said it would help, but I wasn't trying to heal by pretending. I was trying to live by remembering honestly. People still come to me, reporters, neighbors, sometimes doctors, sometimes grandchildren of men I used to know. They all want the same thing, the list. What do you eat, Walter? How much do you sleep? Do you take vitamins? Do you stretch? Do you avoid sugar? Have you always been like this? And I can see the relief on their faces when I begin listing ordinary things. 2 eggs in the morning, fried in butter, real meat now and then,
vegetables from the ground, bread, water, black coffee, no powders, no miracle supplements, no obsession, and yes, sometimes a piece of chocolate after dinner, sometimes a small glass of whiskey when the weather turns cold and the house gets too quiet. That's usually the part where people smile, as if I've given them permission to be human again.
But if I stop there, I've told them almost nothing. The truth is, I never made food into a religion. I never sat at a table feeling guilty for enjoying what was in front of me. The people I knew who turned every meal into fear usually carried that fear into every other corner of life too. They feared aging, they feared illness, they feared pleasure, they feared mistakes, they feared not being in control. And in my experience, fear wears a person down faster than butter ever could. I remember one doctor years ago, young fellow, sharp face, polished shoes, the kind of confidence only youth can afford. He looked over my numbers and told me plainly that my cholesterol would kill me before 60. He said it in that calm, professional tone doctors use when they want to sound certain. I nodded, thanked him, and went home. Years passed, decades even. One day I went back to that same hospital and learned he'd died before I had. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel smug. I just stood there in the hallway, thinking how strange life is. A man can know everything about the body and still not know what keeps it willing to stay.
That reminds me of a regular passenger I had for 4 years. Twice a week, same hospital, same route, same back seat. Dr. Paulson, nutritionist, wrote books, gave lectures. He knew all there was to know about food, what to avoid, what to increase, how much, when, why. I used to hear him talking to patients on the phone while I drove, telling them what to remove from their diets, how to fix their habits, how to protect themselves from decline. One day, after listening to him long enough, I asked him a simple question. I said, "Doctor, what's the secret to a long and healthy life?" He answered quickly, "Eat clean, sleep well, avoid stress." Then I asked him, "Do you do all three?" And for the first time, he went quiet. After a moment, he said, "I eat clean, I sleep fine. The stress part, I never quite figured that one out." He died in his 70s. I drove his wife to the service, and I remember thinking that a man can know the rules perfectly and still lose to the thing he never learned to put down. That is when I began understanding that survival is not just physical. It is emotional, spiritual too, if you want to call it that. A body does not move through the years alone. It carries grief, it carries regret, it carries loneliness, it carries unfinished conversations and swallowed anger, and all the heavy little stones a person keeps in the pocket of the heart. And if you never set any of them down, they go with you everywhere.
Margaret understood this long before I did. We were married 58 years. 58. That's long enough to know a person's footsteps from 3 rooms away. Long enough to hear meaning in silence. Long enough to know when the person sitting beside you is physically present but emotionally somewhere else. She used to tell me, "Walter, you're home, but you haven't arrived yet." I didn't understand it at first. I thought being a good husband meant work, consistency, showing up, paying bills, staying loyal. And those things matter, of course they do. But Margaret was talking about something else. She meant I was always half inside tomorrow, half inside work, half inside the next task. I was living beside my life, not fully inside it. Then I retired,
And that was when everything became dangerous. For months, I did almost nothing. I woke up, made coffee, sat in my chair, looked out the window, waited for lunch, waited for evening, waited for sleep. Then I did it again. At first, it felt like rest. Then it began to feel like rehearsal for death. That's the truth nobody tells you about retirement. If purpose leaves your life at the same moment work does, the days start flattening out. The body notices, the mind notices, the soul notices. You stop moving towards something and start drifting. I have seen many people die that way, not suddenly, not dramatically, just quietly folding inward because nothing was calling them forward anymore. One morning, for no important reason at all, I stepped into the garden. There was a weed by the tomatoes. I bent down and pulled it. Then another, then another. 2 hours later, my hands were black with dirt, my knees hurt, my shirt stuck to my back, and for the first time in months, I felt alive in a real way. Not happy exactly, but engaged, returned. When I came inside, Margaret looked at me with an expression I still remember. It was not surprise, it was relief. The kind of relief that says, "There you are. I've been waiting for you to come back." That little garden helped save me, not because tomatoes are magical, but because purpose is, and purpose does not have to be grand. That is something I wish more people understood earlier. Purpose does not have to be a career, a title, an empire, or a mission statement written on a wall. Sometimes purpose is as small as watering a plant, walking 20 minutes, calling your son, feeding the birds, fixing the hinge on a gate, putting on a record at 7 o'clock because you said you would. Small reasons count. In fact, some days they are the only reasons that do. If this part is speaking to you, subscribe now, because this is the kind of thing people usually realize too late. And comment below with one small reason that gets you out of bed in the morning. It does not need to sound impressive. Honest answers matter more than impressive ones.
When Margaret died 11 years ago, the world did not stop. That was the cruel part. I woke up the next morning at 6 by habit and made 2 cups of coffee before I remembered. I set them both on the table, one for me, one for her. Then I sat down and stared at them. I could not drink mine, and I could not pour hers out. So I just sat there while the coffee went cold and the light changed in the kitchen, and time kept moving like it always does, no matter what has happened to you. That morning taught me something I have never forgotten. Grief does not ask whether you are ready, and life does not pause until you are. Eventually, I stood up. I went out to the garden, pulled a few weeds, took my walk, called my son, Robert. We did not say anything profound, but in that ordinary, painful, unimpressive day, I found something small to do, and that small thing carried me into the next hour, then the next, then the next. That is the closest thing I have ever found to a secret. Every day, find one reason to continue the day. Not forever, just the day. That is manageable. That is human.
Robert is 78 now. Last spring, he called and said he'd been meaning to visit, but work was busy and he'd come when things calmed down. I told him, "Robert, I'm 105. You can come now, or you can come later and speak to a photograph. That choice is yours." He came that Saturday. We sat on the porch for 6 hours. He told me things he had been carrying for 30 years. I told him things I should have said when he was 40. He comes every 3 weeks now. You learn something when you live this long. Love delayed becomes regret very quickly. Good people are not decorations in your life. They are part of how you survive it. And before I finish, let me say one more thing as plainly as I can. Some of this is luck. It would be dishonest to leave that out. My father lived to 94. My grandmother passed 90. I was given a sturdy frame to start with. Good bones, as they used to say. So no, I will not insult you by pretending everything is discipline. It isn't. Life is never that neat. But luck is not the whole story either. The years still ask something from you. They ask whether you will stay involved in your own life, whether you will remain reachable, whether you will keep noticing the light through the window, the voice on the phone, the tomatoes in the garden, the empty chair, the music at dusk, whether you will keep saying yes to the ordinary things that quietly keep you here.
So here is my answer, the real one. Eat real food. Move a little every day. Keep good people close. Tell the truth before time takes the chance from you. And above all, find something, anything, that makes tomorrow morning feel worth arriving for. Because the people I watched fade fastest were not always the sickest. They were the ones who had run out of reasons. The body hears that kind of surrender. It always does. I'm Walter. I'm 105 years old. This morning I woke up at 6, made my coffee, looked at the empty chair across from me, and said good morning the way I always do. Then I stepped outside and checked the garden, just for a few minutes. My knees aren't what they used to be, but the light was good, the air was cool, and for another day, that was enough. If this meant something to you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment with the one thing in your life that still makes the morning feel worth it. Because in the end, the days are not something to get through. The days are the whole life. And once you understand that, you stop waiting to live, and you start noticing that you still are. So here is my answer, the real one. Eat real food. Move a little every day. Keep good people close. Tell the truth before time takes the chance from you. And above all, find something, anything, that makes tomorrow morning feel worth arriving for. Because the people I watched fade fastest were not always the sickest. They were the ones who had run out of reasons. The body hears that kind of surrender. It always does. I'm Walter. I'm 105 years old. This morning I woke up at 6, made my coffee, looked at the empty chair across from me, and said good morning the way I always do. Then I stepped outside and checked the garden, just for a few minutes. My knees aren't what they used to be, but the light was good, the air was cool, and for another day, that was enough. If this meant something to you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment with the one thing in your life that still makes the morning feel worth it. Because in the end, the days are not something to get through. The days are the whole life. And once you understand that, you stop waiting to live, and you start noticing that you still are.